You know, sometimes I'm just not entirely sure what it means to like video games anymore. And stick with me on this, but I'm constantly mesmerized by the amount of astonishing graphics that the industry keeps pushing out to us year after year. Seriously, for all the shortcomings that EA or Ubisoft have, right? One thing I can never knock them for is the absolute gorgeous art that their various studios are producing. When I'm surrounded by these graphics, I just don't feel like I'm actually enjoying these games. I'm just hypnotized by their beauty. It's a trap of sunken costs because I spent $60 on a game, you're wrapped up in the graphics. It's like my mind is trying to tell me that I need to like something because of the investment I made into it, right? And then games like Vampire Survivors come from the indie scene. And they come along and they just absolutely melt your face off and blast you into the past. In the world of 8-bit games or 16-bit games, whatever this one really is, there's just no hiding behind like millions of polygons, right? You either live or you die on your gameplay. And so with that, welcome back to the channel, everybody. I'm Hoffman and this is Buy or Skip. Here on Buy or Skip, I hope to give you enough information on enough topics so that you can figure out whether or not you want to buy or skip any given game. And if you like that premise, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. But for now, this is Vampire Survivors, and here's my review. Released December 21st, 2021 onto the PC through Steam, Mac, and Android, Vampire Survivors is a self-published game from the solo developer, Ponkel. I think I'm saying that right. If not, apologies. It's an interesting name. Kinda like it. This is an 8-bit or 16-bit roguelike game which is based around the idea of assembling 6 weapons and 6 items to see if you can't defend yourself against the onslaught of supernatural monsters for 30 minutes or so. So with that, let's start with story. Far be it from me to stretch out a game category large enough to feel like I've adequately done my job as a reviewer. But, well, when it comes to the story of Vampire Survivors, it's a setting of this game that is very familiar feeling and it's kind of haunting one. From the spacious forest to the inside of the endless library, I really dig the vibe of the map that this game has to offer. Much like there isn't much in terms of the maps to play on, there's also isn't really a story here for you to sink into. It's the type of boldness and narrative choice that harkens back to the days of NES and Atari with games like Gauntlet. But even with that comparison, it might be giving Vampire Survivors a bit too much credit in the story development department, and that it should probably warrant. I just kind of want to be careful. Although this game does lack in an actual story, it does kind of make up for it with like the amount of characters are playable in the game. I don't know, just staring at all these characters and the character select screen, right? It just makes me think there's a sense of story that's inside the developer's head, but he knows it just won't matter that much if he puts it into the game or not. So I feel like I've said enough words to adequately feel like I've done my job as a reviewer for the story section here, so let's move on. Next up, graphics. So this game is an absolute throwback to that simple and beautiful era of pixel art and gaming that was just so delightful and everything has aged so dang well. And now 2 things to frame my love for the art of this game. 1, I am a boomer, and when it comes to the gaming world, games like this were being released not because it was a nostalgic trip down memory lane, but rather because it was the cutting edge of graphic technology. Seriously, there was a time when you saw a game like this and you felt so immersed it's like you were playing Cyberpunk nowadays. This type of stuff used to be good when I was growing up. And secondly, I also spent a really decent chunk of my youth just absolutely enthralled in creating pixel art graphics. I was completely hooked on pixel art as part of the RPG maker scene back in the early 2000s, shout out to RPG2Knet. I was a pixel artisan, and ever since then, games that come out with pixel art automatically receive this kind of +2 buff to me, like it's a legendary drop out from a chest. I love the art style. With that in mind, take it with whatever kind of grains of salt you want with my review here for the graphics, but I think the graphics of the game are just an absolute delight. There is a simplicity to its style that I just get a thrill out of. One thing I would love to point out is that even though these graphics are simple in what they are, right, to an extent, it doesn't take away from just how good of a job the developer has done with them. In a game when there's an absolute bonkers amount going on the screen, it would be extremely easy to slip up as a designer and just create a mess of art that blends together so your player doesn't really understand what they need to be looking at or where even their own character is on screen. But Ponkel has done just a great job with his pixel art and his color choices to keep this game readable even during its craziest scene. It kind of has this like level of detail, kind of like think about Hades, how you never really got lost in Hades, right? It's similar to that. And there are not really instances where your characters are going to get lost or you can't recognize the enemy from the backdrop of the game. It's a really good color hierarchy. My only criticism in the art would be some of the telegraphing of certain tiles in this game. Sometimes I would have to take a guess whether or not I could pass through an object in the game world, and more than a few times I did take a loss because of this. I just got stuck on something I had no idea that was going to block me from getting through it. Just those parts are a little frustrating, but overall it does a pretty fantastic job. And you also get a pretty good sense on where you are on the map. Design choices, just having these like simple roads, especially on the forest map, it just works. It's really smart. All in all though, Vampire Survivor has an impressive array of weapons and effects going on all at the same time, and it really comes together and has its own unique charm to it. There's just something distinctive about this game. I dig it. Next category, gameplay. I've been playing a ton of Lost Ark in my free time lately, and I'm struck by just the incredible amount of different game systems that the developers of that game have stuck into their ARPG MMO. But with all these different systems that are in there to make me feel like I'm always doing something, I really get a sense that I'm just not having fun managing so much. On the flip side of that coin, you have games like Vampire Survivor. Its concept is so simple and casual because it knows just how amazing and satisfying its gameplay loop is. Like I mentioned at the top of the review, the premise of this game is that you control a character. This character has 12 slots that can be filled by 6 different weapons and then 6 different items. The weapons and items are selected by you from a lottery system of 3 to 4 selections every time you level up in the game, right? And as you level up, you'll be able to level up these items and weapons also to create better forms of them at their max level. The weapons range from throwing knives that shoot out in the direction that you're facing, garlic that creates a ring of AoE damage, and also doves that fly and create a magic missiles of death and destruction around you. Fun stuff, right? The crutch of this game, and also kind of its genius, is that you don't really control your weapon, so to speak. You're not smashing the A button to get your knives to shoot out, rather every weapon is on a timer. So instead of smashing that A button like you're at the Jersey Shore, you're going to wait every 10 seconds for it to shoot. Well, I guess then you kind of are at the Jersey Shore a little bit there. There you go, that's one for my buddy Clint. Additionally, the items you pick up will be used to augment your weapons and your character. Think speeding up how fast your weapons activate with a Tome of Knowledge, and then kind of how fast your HP regens over time with little tiny hearts. To take this system one step deeper and really showcase why this game becomes addictive, there are certain weapons and items that when leveled up all the way combine into a higher existence of weapon done and just become this amazing slaughterhouse of terror for you. And one of the earliest combinations I found were the axes and the candelabra, which went from my axes just being kind of a axe fountain above me, and once I combined them with the candelabra, they just became this ring of death slice, just shooting out in every direction. It was amazing when I found it, I was blown away, and that's when the game really took off for me. The win state of this game is to survive the unending and ever-changing variety of monsters for 30 minutes, and that's no easy feat. There are multiple styles of enemies in this game that are present with their own unique challenges, in which you'll have to master these challenges of them if you want to complete any given level. And at the 30-minute mark, we're presented with this life lesson as death comes down for all of our character and pretty much just instantly kills us. Although I have heard that with enough bending of the game's game files and engines, you can indeed defeat death. Suck it, Gandalf. All this takes place on 2 different maps, and then there's also a bonus challenge map that is basically just the forest kind of leveled up a little bit. But to make up for the lack of maps, you'll be presented with 11 characters that you unlock throughout your playthrough, and they all have different starting weapons and unique stack bonuses and kind of unique stack challenges to keep it interesting. Every character really does play differently. I would get really excited to see just how well I could mix and match the character with different weapons throughout my playthrough. It's just a blast. Special shout out to the few characters in the game that have unique starting weapons in the game that cannot be equipped by any other characters, my favorite being the Skelly Boy Skeleton, who has this bone weapon that bounces around like demonic demon sticks. If you guys remember those, I think they're actually called devil sticks. I told you I was a boomer. Really fun. I enjoy this character. I enjoy this uniqueness of characters. It's really cool. Now, the gameplay loop of Vampire Survivor is nothing short of amazing and addicting. As I've been playing Lost Ark and Forbidden Horizon West, which I love those games, I really think about Vampire Survivors and what I could do with my next run. The gameplay loop of Vampire Survivors is just nothing short of amazing and extremely addicting. As I've been playing Lost Ark and Horizon Forbidden West to work on my review for that, I really think about Vampire Survivors way too much while I'm playing those games, and how I could augment my next run. It's taking me to these unhealthy levels of obsession. I'm not even joking. This game is just addictive, and for the price point, it's the gameplay design that has no right to be this good. It just doesn't. It's too good. $3. Now, one last note before moving on, this is an early access version of the game. I'm not sure how much is planned for this game overall, but with this being an early access, I didn't want to knock it for having a lack of maps to play on, right? It for sure needs more maps, but we'll wait until see the full release before I kind of have an opinion on how many maps are in the game and what would be acceptable. I don't know if that's a weird word to use there, but it's a little light on maps for sure. Next up, sound. There is something to my ears that is just absolutely magical when I hear bit tunes or chip tunes, whatever people call it nowadays. I mean, it's just so unnatural that you can only sit there in awe and its crime against the storied history of human instrument makers from like the dawn of time. Creative, soothing curves of brass and wood to make their instruments to elevate the soul, right? And then chiptunes just comes along and it's just like, nope, here is a modulated, high-pitched tone that no one in existence had ever heard except for the last 40 years of humanity. Don't mistake me, because I love it. I'm in awe of it. It does it for me, right? Like, this is what Vampire Survivors sounds like, and there's just something about the repeating melodies of its main soundtrack. It just kind of puts you into this hypnotic state. I love it. I dig it. It's good. I love it. Sound effects in this game, they're equally as satisfying. With each new item that adds into your inventory, you are met with a new sound effect that's added to kind of your weapon cycle, so to speak. And one of my favorite in particular ones are this upgraded lightning rings. It's just so good. It has this kind of crunch to it, man. Bit tunes, chip tunes are the best. They should be used more often. I get a kick out of their concept. That's all. That's it for the sound section of this game. There's not much to it. It's there. It's serviceable. It works. It does a really good job. The developer did a great job making you understand if you're like picking up a good thing or getting hurt by a bad thing. But like, it's only 2 sounds, right? Like, I don't know. It's good. That's the sound section. Hope you enjoyed the sound category of this review. Let's move on. And we're moving on to our last category, replayability. Let's talk about the best part about this game. On my Discord, we really don't talk about specific games a lot, right? But I have seen more screenshots posted about people's runs in this game than I've seen talked about any other game since my Discord has existed. It's unnerving. Inherently, Vampire Survivors is meant to be replayable. It's built around that idea. That's the nature of a roguelike or a roguelite. I always get mixed up on the nuance of those 2 genres. But this is the one that, you know, not only are you meant to die, but when you die, there's a way to upgrade your overall stats for your playthroughs. Adding more overall health or XP gain to your characters can be purchased with the coins that you receive from inside of the game. It's that one. Roguelite, I don't know. If you guys know the answer to this, let me know in the comment section, I guess. I get it so confused. Now, this mechanic is actually pretty important to Vampire Survivors because as you continue your playthrough and unlock characters, you'll find that some characters just don't feel that playable without the overall upgrades like speed or health. It can be a bit rough with them. There's like an old man. He's the slowest character in the game and he's pretty brutal to play and start off with. But if you do, have your movement upgrade, it's actually not that bad. Now, one aspect I think really helps Vampire Survivors replayability is its very clear end state. Whether you're doing great or you're just kind of barely crossing the finish line of this, the runs are going to take you 30 minutes. And it's this defined parameter that has made me lose more hours than I would care to admit because I know I can just fit in one more game here or one more game there before I have to go do something meaningful with my life. And then whoops, wouldn't you know, 3 hours fly by and I'm still a piece of garbage. But I did my personal best in the Vampire Survivors and I hit that pit to chest and everything felt great, so it was worth it. Now at first, this game's feedback loop is just an absolute joy to play through. Understanding the strengths of certain weapons and how they mix together is just delightful and really get you coming back for more on your first day with this game. But once you figure out that you can upgrade your items into stronger versions of themselves, all bets are off and you'll begin strategizing how many items you want to pick up in the beginning of the match so that you can kind of juice your King Bible and upgrade it into its max form sooner than, I don't know, say your garlic, right? Now for a game with this much simplicity and a relatively small amount to do in it, I can't believe how much I've been addicted to this game and how many hours I've put into it, and just for about $3. I don't think I've had a better bang for my buck in gaming since on games I actually am looking to spend money into. Not like free-to-play games that like kind of bait you out with, chests and skins and stuff, but this is just, if you're looking to spend money, this is $3. It's going to take, 12 hours of your day. Seriously, maybe not, maybe a little bit. That's it. That's replayability. Buy or skip, Vampire Survivors. When picking games for buy or skip here on HofmvnVerse, it's always been the case that some of the most unsuspecting games are the ones that I enjoy the most. They just totally catch me off guard. Browsing through Steam, Vampire Survivors really just looks like a cheesy game that maybe came from a mobile developer. It just kind of hopes that they throw it up on Steam and just kind of a cash grab. Maybe a couple people will find it, pick it up, and they get a little bit of money in their pocket. But when I actually play this game, it just has so much more depth than I was expecting. And it's just so much dumb fun that any indie game I've played for the past 2 years, I can't put this game down. And for around $3, you should absolutely buy Vampire Survivors. All right, there's this week's buy or skip. I hope that it helped you guys make a decision on whether or not you should buy Vampire Survivors. If you're looking for a more AAA title, why don't you check out my review on Dying Light 2. This is a really great video, in depth on everything about Dying Light 2. I put a lot of work into it, and it's really going to help you make a decision for the more pricier game, the ones that you're going to be dropping, the $50 mark. So there's that video, check it out. And that's it for this video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye everybody.